Well, as I say, one of the main things that I really hope that anybody who's reading it is going to get, in the world right now, the world is changing so quickly, as you know. Hardly anybody now who is in the workforce is going to go into a job and stay in that career for the rest of their life. And so each one of the chapters that I've written in the book is talking about some kind of curveball that I had to
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan. Today's episode, I get to interview author Fiona Bayliss. She is the author of the book 98% Normal. We're going to talk about her journey and how she wrote this book, what that title means, the mental health of a lot of entrepreneurs, as well as some techniques that you can implement today to help you feel less stressed as an entrepreneur. Hi, Fiona. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Hi, Angela, and thank you so much for having me on. It's good to meet you.
Nice to see you again. Before we get started into your book, 98% Normal, I would love for you to share your story, your background, and kind of how you got to writing the book.
Okay, all right. Well, as you may be able to tell from my accent, I'm originally from England. I've been living in Canada for almost 40 years. I live on the West Coast in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. I originally trained as a nursery nurse in England, and after I'd done my training, I wanted to travel and see the world. So I took several jobs as a nanny in different countries and even on different continents in the US, in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, places in Europe. And several years ago, I fell in love with a man in Victoria, BC, here, Canada, decided to emigrate to Canada and marry him. And when I came here, I discovered that because of the different regulations and rules in regards to different fields, that my nursery nursing background I wasn't able to use it here. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I changed careers. And at that time, there were very few women, as you probably know, in finance, law, medicine, anything like that. So I ended up getting a job, was hired by a company to train as a chartered financial consultant and establish a women's financial planning center. And that is what I did. It took me 7 years to get all my designations, 3 proficient designations in the financial field, set up this women's financial planning center, was very successful, and that was going well, when suddenly a health crisis hit me. I went into what's called status, where you're going from one seizure to another, and I was suddenly diagnosed with epilepsy. It has been a long journey since then, partly working, partly not working, because obviously because of the seizures, I lost my ability to drive, at least until the seizures were under control. So I managed to get hired by a major banking institution in town here. Because of my designations and my experience, they hired me as the main financial planner for a branch. I was actually the first and only female financial advisor that they hired. And I worked there for more than a decade and was very proficient in my job. But as the seizures returned, because life became very stressful, I ended up having 2 brain surgeries. And eventually doctors said, you are just going to have to stop working because too much stress and too much. But I still have all of that financial knowledge. And I obviously also have the knowledge from when I worked and trained as a nursery nurse. So now I do a lot of volunteer work in many different regards where I'm working with people and giving advice, whether it be budgeting, financial planning, those. I also work with people and different organizations and agencies, mostly nonprofit, sometimes connected with the governments, that are in relation to people who are living with chronic illness, whether it be epilepsy, Parkinson's, Heart and Stroke Foundation, because obviously if and when somebody is diagnosed with a chronic illness, it has a major impact on their life, not just health-wise, but also financially, emotionally, in so many ways. So I've kind of combined all my experience as to what has happened to me, how it's also affected me. I sadly have been through 2 marriage breakdowns in relation to the health. And I work with other people to help them show how all these obstacles that we are thrown in life, and most of us, I call them curveballs, most of us are thrown curveballs of one kind or another at different stages throughout life. But my book is all about how we can take these curveballs that we're thrown in life and become stronger, more resilient, and better people by learning how to overcome the adversity and work together with others in community and become more caring and empathetic people because of it.
What an incredible story. Not only to have to pivot in careers, but also, I'm sure the lifestyle is a little bit different from country to country. And when you were starting on your journey in this financial world, you're right, it wasn't very common for a woman to be in the environment. So you had a lot of obstacles that you were already facing and overcoming. And then to have that, kind of come to a halt because you had to take care of your health first. And it's interesting too, because I think no matter where we live, the stress levels that we can put on ourselves and our own body, we don't always understand the effects that it could have on us until something kind of rears its head, right? And then we really have to be conscious and aware and work on it.
That is a very, very good point. I remember when I came to in the hospital, Angela, after this at all. I mean, I had never experienced a seizure or anything like that in my life before, and I remember the doctor asking me, when was the last time you had a seizure? I've never had. What is this? I knew what a seizure was, but And then we did some digging and we discovered that, sure enough, my aunt, who I knew very rarely, or saw rather very rarely because she lives in New Zealand, and growing up in England back in the late 60s, 70s and 80s, international travel was not as affordable or available as it is nowadays. So I didn't even know about her having this condition. And I also discovered that when I had been a baby, only 1 year old, I suffered with pneumonia very badly, to the point that I was put in an oxygen tent to help me breathe. And so they have discovered from MRIs and EEGs that there is scar tissue and brain damage and that's where, so yes, but that was at 1 year old. Obviously, I don't remember that age. And it was a year after I emigrated to Canada that, bam, I suddenly went into this uncontrollable seizure that went from one to another, lasted for several hours. I mean, and that in working in the financial industry, I sold insurance products as well as financial products and pension plans and estate planning, did the whole gamut. That became very much a recurring theme, that yes, there are people who are born with illnesses that they deal with, but it is a shocking number of people. For example, in the USA, 45% of people are living with at least one chronic illness, sometimes 2 or 3. In Canada, we're not much healthier. It's in the 35% mark, and the same in Europe and other continents. So it is, even if somebody doesn't have a chronic illness themselves, more than likely they have a family member or a friend that they know. And financially, as well as emotionally and physically, as I say, it is a major impact on a family for everybody.
Yeah. Wow. Statistics are pretty amazing to understand that.
Yes.
So 98% normal. What
Mhm.
inspired you to write the book, and what does the title mean to you?
Well, when I've come to meet people, I've been on permanent disability for over 20 years now. And as I say, throughout that time period, once I'd had the second brain surgery and the doctor said, you need to stop working, I'm still I want to be active in the community, and I want to be as making a difference and adding. I think we all need a purpose and a meaning in life, no matter what our age. And I knew after having these seizures, and obviously when I'm in a seizure, I am anything but normal. I am. So I kind of came up with the title of 98% normal, because 98% of the time, just like you and I are chatting right now, I might seem very, quote, normal, whatever that means nowadays. And I may seem like I have absolutely zero health conditions. But if I was to suddenly go into a seizure, I am literally out of control. I mean, I often very much have, they used to call them grand mal, they now call them tonic-clonic. And as I've met people over the years, both when I was working as a financial advisor and also in the different areas that I work as a volunteer, and, to relate to other people who are dealing with chronic illness or financial issues, I've obviously shared some of my story. And when a lot of people hear what I've gone through, I have almost drowned twice when I had a seizure in a bathtub. I've gone down a flight of stairs head first. I've walked off the sidewalk into oncoming traffic because I was in a seizure and not mentally there. I've collapsed on the stove face down. And when I share my stories with people, I had so many people say to me, "Man, when are you going to write a book?" And during COVID, with all the lockdowns that we had and we were limited as to where we could go, I thought, I am going to write a book. And if I can reach out, just like I've been reaching out to people doing the volunteer work, if I can reach out to other people who are dealing with, whether it be medical issues or financial hardships or relationship breakdowns, if I can help anybody in any way know that they're not alone, and also talk about the things that I have learned from overcoming these hardships and how being able to put things in a different perspective. For example, with me not being able to drive, and I haven't had my driver's license now since 1996, so almost 30 years. And yes, that has been hard, and I have to do a lot of walking, and I have to take a lot of buses and occasionally cabs, and sometimes friends are good enough to give me rides if it fits in with their schedules. But I recognize that we all have busy lives. But I've been able to look at things over time and see, I am a much healthier person because of how much walking I do. And from a financial perspective, because I used to do this with clients when we were looking at budgeting. I mean, nowadays, as I'm sure you know, owning a vehicle is almost a luxury. When you add in the cost of fuel and insurance and maintenance, it is our second after housing. It is most people's second biggest monthly expenses. So it's looking at the ways that life have not gone the way that I expected, but turning it from being negative and, oh, poor me, to actually this has turned out to be a benefit.
Yeah, there's often different ways that you can look at a situation or a story, and you can choose to concentrate or focus on that negative piece of it, but you've learned to focus on the positive. I mean, you're still here today, so that's incredible. You get to tell your story and share and inspire other people. So talk to the readers of this book. What should they expect when they're reading this book? What is your hope for a reader that picks up a copy and starts reading?
Well, as I say, one of the main things that I really hope that anybody who's reading it is going to get, in the world right now, the world is changing so quickly, as you know. Hardly anybody now who is in the workforce is going to go into a job and stay in that career for the rest of their life. And so each one of the chapters that I've written in the book is talking about some kind of curveball that I had it came to me, I had to deal with it, and how I worked with it to become a better, more caring, empathetic person. I want people to be able to read this and to know that they're not alone, to know that, change and curveballs and the things that happen in life happen to almost all of us. And that it's in coming together with other people and learning about other people's. I know for me, I in doing the volunteer work that I do, it is so good for me when I see other people. I mean, as much as sometimes when somebody hears my story, they might, "Oh, that's so terrible. How did you cope?" We have things so good, as you know, in the Western world in comparison to other countries in the world. I want people to be inspired, to get hope, to know that they're not alone, and to be able to, yes, rationally look at the negatives and the hardships that they may be dealing with, but learn, and that's what at the end of each chapter, I summarize how they can turn that negative into a positive, and how in going through these adversities that we all face in different ways in life, some people have probably faced far more hardships than myself, that we do end up becoming stronger and better people. Most people, when you talk to them, if you were to ask them, when is the time that you really learned a good lesson in life? It's not when life was going well, it's when they were dealing with difficulty.
That's very true. Right. So for the audience, maybe some advice. A lot of my audience are female entrepreneurs, business owners, but we tend to put a lot on our plate, right? So we want to have the business, we want to have the family and the kids, we want to have the husband and the friends and the family and the community, but it could be a lot of stress. So give them some advice. Going through what you did and the stress, obviously, that had an effect on your health. What advice would you give to them?
I would say one of the main things, and I do 100%, because when I was self-employed and established this business as the Women's Financial Planning Center, when I got that established and was working with several people, that one of the main things that I think people need to remember is always keeping things in balance, whether that be your work, home life situation. If you have children, obviously you have huge demands on you there, no matter what their age is. And it is such a difficult thing for so many women. I mean, obviously it is for men as well, but we women, I think we tend we're our own worst enemies sometimes, as far as putting the pressure on ourselves to be the perfect mother and the perfect wife and run the perfect business. And I learned the hard way when, nobody is going to reach perfection in this life. And that is one of the things that the book very much, and that's again part of the title, 98% normal. Nobody is ever going to be, no matter how hard they try, nobody is ever going to be 100%. And at the end of the day, that isn't what life is all about anyway. It is about achieving in our own mind, whether we're wanting to achieve happiness, success, love, and all those words mean different things to different people. Mm-hmm. So it is looking at all those different aspects of your life, whether it be a girlfriend or a wife, or being a mother or a daughter or a sister, all the different things, all the relationships, and how, yes, you can be the best that you can be in that, but that does not mean perfection. And it does not mean striving for perfection. It means finding a balance. As I'm sure you know, and a lot of your audience knows, there is a huge difference between being rich and being wealthy. Mm-hmm. And being wealthy is having all of those things, whether it be good health, good relationships, good career, business, whatever it be, and having them all in a balanced proportion. And of course, at times there's going to be some days, some years, even some months where you might have to give more attention to your children than to your work. And then there's going to be other times where, you're going to realize, hey, I need to be giving my husband more attention than I am or than I have been, because life is just so busy nowadays for everybody that finding that key of keeping things in balance is huge to finding happiness and feeling successful.
Yeah, great advice, Fiona. All right. So if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more about your book, 98% Normal, how do they find you?
I have a website that has been set up. They can type in FionaBayliss.ca, or they can type in 98% Normal. The website will come up. My book is currently being edited. It's going to be available at the end of this month, hopefully at the very latest, middle of December. And they can look for my book, whether it be it's going to be in all formats as well, whether it be printed or Audible, however a person wants to read it or listen to it. And I'm going to be doing future podcasts with other people where I've already got several lined up to speak as a guest, where I will be speaking about this subject more and hopefully giving help and encouragement to women out there so that they can be able to relate and feel, yes, this speaks to me.
Yes, it's okay not to be 100% normal.
That's right.
Awesome, Fiona. Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, thank you so much, Angela. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.